Yeah.
By the way, I stopped the broadcast because nobody could hear it, you guys. So now I'm just recording it and I'll post it tomorrow. That'd be
Okay.
Okay.
so. You know what? But look, they spent 1.5 trillion in 2017 on tax cuts, and they spent 1.5 trillion in 2018 on bipartisan spending. And then so now they're like, we spent 2 trillion. It's a big deal. I'm like, you guys do that shit every year. I'm not like the shortest memories on the planet. I can't believe we have the internet and like people remember even less. I mean, we just spent 3 trillion over the last 3 years. And now people are like, we're spending another 2 trillion. It's such a big deal. We got to save the economy. I'm like, it didn't save the economy before. What's
But the thing is, we're still spending those trillions. Now this is more trillions added onto it.
Yeah, I can't tell what
cuts don't just disappear.
Oh, what's the normal trillion and what's the bonus trillions? Which ones count? Which ones are extra? I can't tell.
They're all extra. That's the thing.
Yeah, people are. I was getting to the debate about the. What I said people are arguing about whether the bailouts and the stimulus are socialism or capitalism. I'm like, it's neither. It's just debt. It doesn't even count. It's a whole other game that we started playing where it's like the whose line is it anyway of money. It's like just print it. It doesn't even matter. Don't even think about it.
Right. Right.
It's ridiculous. And people are like, well, you're gonna get my blood pressure up already.
I think you're getting your own blood pressure up.
Yeah.
What I don't understand though is Alex is why it bothers you so much. Like, it's gonna happen.
It doesn't bother me. I just like to get excited about things. Okay. Like bother me, like what? I mean, it's like asking somebody why fiscal irresponsibility bothers them. It's like, well, wouldn't it be better if they did it correctly? That's all. I mean, but my personality is like, well, if I like it, then I absolutely head over heels love it. And if I hate it, then I have to burn it to the ground with the utmost of rage. But, roll it off my shoulder. That just does not fit into my personality. It does not fit into my personality.
You should, though, as a property owner, like it.
I care so much. I care and read about history a lot more than I do. Like to me, the bigger picture matters. Like me, I'll be fine. Look, I just like books. I don't need that much money. You know what I mean? So buying a couple properties, like, dude, I have 8 properties now, plus my little apartment. Like, I'm kind of set. I mean, it's not much money, but I mean, for me, I'm good. I got cameras. That's the only thing I spend my money on. Every few years, I buy a camera. So, and look, we just did this last 8 years where everybody kind of got rich. And now we're going to turn this corner. And I'm not really sure how things are going to, it's easy to get into the narrative of, we'll get another 10 years, good. But that's not really how it's going to always work out. But point is, it's like most likely. So I'm very excited, but also, dude, I'm deadly. Like when I did so well from 8 to 20 and I was an idiot. And then now I'm like an idiot with some really good resources. I know the game a little bit now. So even if I try half as hard, I'll do twice as well. So I'm not going to come out of this thing the richest guy in the world. Like for me, it's like, maybe I could take less. In fact, if the country would be run better, I'd be happier.
It's a fair point.
Maybe not.
Well, the country's never going to be run better. Doesn't matter who's in charge.
Well, that's such a cynical thing. You think it can't get worse?
Well, no, I said it's never going to be run better, right? So it can't.
So it can only get worse from here?
Yeah.
Ooh, damn, dude.
And we're at a pretty low point, right?
That's pretty rough.
That's cynical.
I'm a little more optimistic than that, but holy shit. Wow.
This is the 4th show I've done, and I've only had my brother, who's the bleakest person on the planet. My buddy Jason Ramis in Las Vegas, who is also the bleakest person on the planet. And then Russell.
third bleakest person.
Yeah. Actually, so this is the 5th show, and then I had Mindy on. She was kind of annoyed that everybody else was being so dramatic.
League, I am excited about irresponsible government spending.
Okay. I'm excited about efficient operations, man. I feel like what's going to set us apart now in the next year or two is the people that can actually know what they're doing and can run properties well, versus the people that don't and can't. and those are going to be the guys that have to give back their properties to the people who can. So I'm pretty excited about the fact that I've spent the last few years learning how to run properties and building the portfolio. So hopefully I'm on the right side of that equation. And I'm not looking to, like, you know, get rich off anyone's back or come steal properties away. But unfortunately, I think that with the awesome economy that we've had, and we've seen people bidding up property after property, I'm sure you guys have seen the same thing in your markets, where we only closed on 3 deals last year, 2019, and nothing so far this year. And that's fine. It's not that we're not making offers, but we're not chasing prices up. And so I'm worried about those guys that were chasing prices up, and I'm worried they're not only did they overpay, but they're not going to be able to run those properties well.
Well, you touch on a point there, maybe without even realizing it, that a lot of stuff in real estate is actually counter-cyclical to the cycle. So, right, margins tighten during good economies because so much easy money floods in. When we go into down economies, that washes out the people that don't know what they're doing, so that the people that do know what they're doing can actually make larger profits, whether it's multifamily syndicators, real estate agents, commissions on average rise during recessions, flippers, profit margins rise during recessions. Obviously, you don't want to be holding property on the way down, but the counter-cyclical nature is something that I'm actually looking forward to over the next year or two.
So I'm in the middle of a flip, actually. It was supposed to close 2 weeks ago, and it got delayed. So now I might be screwed. I got delayed till May 1, so I may be
Well,
screwed.
you were smart, and you have a backup plan for that property, right?
Actually, you know what I did on that property? Because I was really worried about something happening. I bought that property on somebody's IRA with no interest and no payments. So we're just we're just waiting. And in fact, he's like, "Hey, hang on to it," because what happened was now I didn't lose 30% of my IRA.
Right.
So, and I still think we're going to close at full price because I live in a market where the military base is right here. The guy's PCSing. His PCS was delayed. It's not going to be delayed for that long. The U.S. Army is not going to shut down. And so he's going to end up moving here, and he's not losing a job. He's not losing a stitch of income. He's going to be fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not sure about that, but actually it brings me to another question I wanted to ask you guys, because I kind of did a video on this. I'm going to release it over the next few days about, like, you know, the news is so. Have you noticed some people have a very defeatist attitude, as if we shouldn't all be at work during these 2 weeks, preparing for this inevitable opportunity that we just said? Was that a question?
I don't think I understand the question.
So, like, I don't know. It just feels like a lot of people are taking a pause instead of, or people are looking at this as all the bad that's going to happen. And that's a lot of people are talking. I say a lot of people, I hear a lot of it. I hear a lot of negativity about the market instead of optimism about, okay, well, the world's not going to end. So what are we going to do next? And so, Justin, that's what you were saying. Like, hey, look, once, you know, there's gonna be some pain, but afterwards I want to capitalize.
I mean, we're still working. I'm working through this. I'm talking to my property managers daily right now. I've got a sheet. I'm monitoring applications, walkthroughs, tours on a daily basis. We're not slowing down anything on what we're doing, and we're going to push right through this thing. So anyone that I think is we were just talking before about, like, people catching up on Netflix and stuff. I'm like, I have less time now than 3 weeks ago. I haven't seen this Tiger King thing that everyone is talking about. I'm sure Alex has, but I don't know. Like, we're not only, like, operating what we have, but, like, really trying to be efficient and improve our processes, and just trying to keep pushing through.
What about you, Russell? You working more or less?
This week I worked less than, because we got the stay-at-home quarantine order, and where I'm in a service-based industry, now I'm just kind of like in a holding pattern. I'm still doing, you know, some lead generation, but yeah, my ability to generate new business has pretty much come to an end. I mean, I'm making a lot of contacts, but I can't be out. I can't be out in the field because the clients can't come look at properties. So.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard because I think part of the problem is, to argue with myself, it's kind of like, well, it's supposed to be 2 weeks. So it's not like I have to pack up and like, hey, let me change my whole business operations and adapt and overcome. It's like, well, look, I'm kind of like you. It's like, especially the way my business runs, right? I got a couple of flips and most of my stuff's rentals. It's like, I don't have a big operation. It doesn't take a lot of labor, my operation. So for me, I'm kind
Yeah,
of
I mean, either your tenants pay or they don't. It doesn't cause any more work on the rental side, right?
Yeah.
It's just a matter of if you feel the pain of them paying or not.
Well, I'm glad to hear you cruising along, Justin. How's the podcast going?
Good, man.
I see I've been seeing it on the internet.
Well, I've been doing 3 a week for a while. I wanted to catch up because my goal was 100 for this year, and I fell flat in January, so I had to catch up in February and March. So now I'm back to the point where if I do 2 a week, the rest of the year I'll hit 100. So we're changing next week to a two week schedule.
True multifamily, it's up there.
True multifamily, right there. Check it
although
out.
every time I do this, when the video comes out, we're gonna be swapped.
It's flipped.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I changed that in my Zoom settings so that it would flip back the right way, but I don't know. There's a way to change your camera. So
how much time do you dedicate to doing a podcast?
Not that much. I keep my shows short. My shows are 20 to 23 minutes on average.
Okay.
The whole premise is you come in, tell a story about managing multifamily property, but it's one story on one topic. So I don't do a whole 30-minute background on who you are and your life story. That's all online, bios and all that. So you come in, you tell me a story, we'll talk a little bit, and then we'll get out. So the episode itself is short, and then I hired a virtual assistant. And so he does all the editing and the social media promotion and everything else. So in addition to supporting like my asset management work that I do, he just takes that on and he's great. Actually, he learned. So like I'll be sitting, and start getting LinkedIn notifications because people are responding to a post that I put up, but it was all him tagged properly and it's great. So it's actually not much. But I try, but you can fall behind, right? So like right now I have none in the hopper. So I got to record a few episodes this weekend about what we're doing. And
that was my problem with the podcast. Like I tried to do one and dude, it got so out of hand for me. And then two things happened. One, it became way too much production, which is not my strong suit, which is why anybody who's listening to this is exactly what I really wanted from the very beginning was, I wanted to call it Better Drinking Buddies. And it's like, man, what if you go to the bar on a Friday night and pick like a couple of your buddies you knew you're gonna have a good conversation with, you could catch up about business economics, have a few drinks and not have to worry about, drama or talking idiots or whatever like that. And so that's how it started. And then it turned into like, scheduling. And then, somebody's on your show and they're like, you want to help them, you're promoting it. And so now you got to do show notes and pictures and, you got to edit and all this other stuff. And I was like, and it turned out like, well, I got to have a certain amount of people. So I ended up like, I was scouting for people and interviewing people and like, dude, you guys know me. I'm not an interviewer. That's not my strong suit. I'm an interviewee.
You got to know your role, right? You got to know what you're good at. That's fine.
So actually it worked out really good because David Perret asked me to start co-hosting his show, the Military Millionaire podcast. And I love Dave. He does all the work. I'm so thankful for him. He does all the work. All they do is show up. And I'm like, because then he can focus on the production and I can just, interact with the guests.
Cool.
So anyway,
that works.
So if you can outsource it, dude, that's what I wish I did.
So I guess season 2 is not coming.
Season 2 is not coming.
Oh, people will never hear the interview we did.
Well, maybe I'll release it just to say here.
Just mine.
Just yours. Yeah.
That's why I was hoping to be able to get BP to do that DC or the regional podcast ideas, and then I'd just be able to push it all off on Kevin to do all the work.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, with everything with BP, I'm gonna give the world a super fucking secret about how to deal with bigger pockets. It's so easy. Whatever you want to do for them, just produce it in high quality. Done. Then give it to them, and then say, "Hey, could you use this?" And almost always, if it's a high quality product, they'll be like, "Yeah, we'll take that." Oh, who are you?
Yeah, it's funny because
let's be friends. Let's be best friends. Yeah, you can produce that content first.
Because Scott said, I forget if he said it to me or someone else, but he was like, "Just do stuff and send it to us."
100%. I don't ask them. If you ask them, like, "Hey, do you want me to?" Like, think about it, right? And in fact, it's a good thing to know for like,
yeah, every time I've asked them to do stuff, it always gets shot down. And then like Scott's just like, just do it and send it to us.
Because what happens is, first, I love BP, but it's all 20-year-olds. So I don't think you become a good decision maker until a little older than that. And so it gets to them, and I think that, I don't know, well, I don't want to say it like that. It's more like, I don't know what the deal is, but if you ask them, you're like, hey, want to do this? They're like, we don't know how to fit it in. We don't know how to do it. We're not really sure. But if you're like, hey, I produced something awesome for you, have it. They're like, oh, thank you. Well, let's give you your information so we can promote you. And da-da-da-da. It's like, so I think if you ask them, they don't know how to fit your idea into what they already are doing, they are hesitant. But if you just give them something, they're like, ooh, this is awesome. They love it.
Is that what you did with your video, like your pre-conference video?
What do you mean, my pre-conference video? What was that?
You put out a video that was like how to prepare for the conference.
Yeah.
You got a lot of hits.
Yeah. I didn't ask them for that. I just said, oh, I bet you this would be cool. And I just did a hype video for them. Same thing with the, I was asked to be the photographer for the conference this year. And it's like, how'd you do that? It's like, well, I went to the first conference with my camera and I posted 150 photos. I did it anyway. So, but that's how the whole world generally works. So if you want to go work for somebody, it's like, just go show up and produce them go and produce something of value. And then they'll be like, hey, stick around.
There you go. Sweet.
All right.
Hey, I sold a house today. Woo, woo.
Nice.
In Jersey here, down the road from me. It's a rental I picked up a few years ago. I'm not really in the single family space anymore, and I lost my tenant on it a few months ago and thought maybe I would go with a local PM, and then decided, you know what, it's too much. It wasn't that much work, but I bought it 100% private loan. Actually, so I bought it for $50,000, cheap house. I got a loan for $50,000.
Oh.
Yeah. There's some of those in Jersey, not many. But I bought it for 50, got a private loan for 55. So that was like enough to come in, get enough for a CO, basically is all I needed. And I put a tenant in at $1,200 and just cash flowed for 3 years. And I switched tenants, in between there somewhere, but never any issues. I don't know. I probably spent a few $1,000 on repairs in those 3 years, and then sold it I netted a $20K profit today on that. So we sold it for 82 after paying fees and everything, 20 grand. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm having a good day. I want to share that with you guys today. Pretty happy today.
Congrats.
That's like good. If you were to write a textbook on how to do it with no money down and profit, that's the story right there.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. That's an infinite return on investment. What's that in IRR if you have no money in?
It's infinite. So yeah. I look at it as more return on time.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It sounds like a good deal. You should have just kept it.
I could have sold it to you. No, it was a good deal. It was a good deal. That market, though, I feel like is getting high priced and tends to swing. So the houses on that street, they'll sell from 50 to 100 or more, and then they'll come back down to 50. So we were getting high up there, and I said, that's fine. Time to get rid of it. Maybe I'll buy it again in a year or two.
That actually makes me think, because I would never touch a property that cheap.
Yeah.
So this whole crisis is starting to make me think, though, like,
I've never touched a property that cheap.
Well, no, it's not about that. For me, it's about the risk of an asset that cheap.
Yeah.
So this crisis is, and it's too early to tell with it just being April, but I'm curious as this goes on, how my investment philosophy turns out, because I buy high quality, low risk assets, right? And on the second of the month, I had 100% of my rent in, just across 13 units.
Yeah.
But my units are, a lot more expensive than that one.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, to see how things perform, on the asset classes, class A, B, C, D, if this gets into May, June, July. Because if I maintain this sort of high rent collection rate during this, it just reinforces what I already believe. But then that could be a confirmation bias too. which could be steer me wrong.
Well, you could be, yeah. Well, I have the feeling that low quality, low grade rentals will do worse, and high quality, high grade buildings are going to do really well after this. I think inequality is going to be exacerbated. I think cities where, I think, the people who are out of work, aren't the people who buy expensive houses generally. Because the people who are like, if you're buying expensive houses, you got a high income, then odds are you can work from home. So most of those people haven't, I don't want to say most, but many of them haven't lost their jobs. And so I think housing like that I do, those C-class single family homes and cheaper markets like Fayetteville where rents are 900, I think mine will actually suffer worse than Russell's, where in the past, if you'd asked me, I'd say, no, in a recession, I would have thought of it more systemic and say higher rentals come down a little bit because of regression to the mean, and lower rentals would stay higher because of the same reason. That's what I would have posited before. But because of the way this is unfolding, I'm starting to think that maybe, and I mean, it's just speculation, I'm starting to think that maybe you're going to see higher income housing to do well or even better, and lower income to do worse.
I actually agree. And I have mostly C-class assets and lower rents. Most of our rents are below $1,000 a month across the board. And most of our tenants, unless they're in a very specific industry, like we do have a property in Kentucky. A lot of our tenants work on the horse farms, and those have been deemed essential, so they're all still working. But then like the property in Fayetteville, I think a lot of people have lost their jobs, and they're asking for help right now.
Yeah.
So then the logical conclusion to that hypothesis then is, should we see less rate compression, right? So should the difference between an A class and a B class and a C class, should those cap rates differences be larger than we've seen in the last 3, 4, 5 years, right? If the C class is going to perform worse than the D class, should you get a higher cap rate to take on the higher risk that wasn't apparent before, but maybe is more apparent
Well, that's
now?
the way it should be, right?
Yeah,
You should be getting
it should
a higher
be that
cap.
way.
You should be getting a higher cap rate for the C class,
Yeah.
and a less high cap rate for the B, and then the lowest for the A. And that's sort of the
But
textbook
that
way it
difference over the
goes.
last several years has
Yeah.
shrunk so much.
Yeah, it's so tight. I know.
Yeah. That's actually a really good point. You're going to see the expansion of the cap rates probably on the lower end for sure more. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I think that's you're right. We were in this phase here where everything was so tight that caps were so close between the asset classes. Who wins though? Like if you were buying A's or C's in the last few months, last year, let's say, who's going to come out ahead? I guess it depends on the exit strategy, right?
Yeah, I mean, it also depends on too. Did you pay a 5.5 cap for that A, or did you pay 3?
Right.
So I think there'll be an interesting. I wonder if you could get the data after the fact. I wonder if you could tell because it wasn't linear, right? Like in the last 18 months, cap rate compression was higher than between 15 and 17. Mm-hmm. Cap rate compressions in 2018 and 19 were more dramatic than they were the 2 years prior, and more dramatic than the 2 years prior. So I wonder if more, instead of what class you bought, I wonder if it would be what year you bought. The people who bought 18, 19 are at the higher end of the compression than people who bought in the 16, 16, 17.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely just goes back to the earlier point that we were talking about, that as we get further and further along in the bull market, right, profit margin shrunk, cap rate compression shrunk. And hopefully now in the next couple of years, those things will expand. We can make larger profits. If we're going to be in a lower class property, we can at least get that higher cap rate to compensate for that. Because if the difference between A class and C class is only the difference between a 4 and a 5 cap, why not go to the better, less risky thing? Because the marginal difference in return,
sure,
is so small.
Right. The difference in tenant quality is
drastic.
Yeah. That's what I had hoped to do this year when we were buying another one. I was like, I'd rather buy something nicer that can weather any storms. Cause you buy in a big city, DC, Raleigh, Charlotte, like, I mean, I say that, but then I think about, New York's not having a good time. So, it's interesting. Like we've been talking about this, everybody, has been talking about this for 18 months. Like, we knew it was hot. We knew things were overpriced. We knew something, we didn't know what the catalyst was going to be, but we knew like some of this drop isn't COVID-19. Some of this drop is like, hey, you guys have been playing this game way too long anyway. So I think some of it looks worse than it maybe could have been had things been in a little bit, but that's the nature, the human nature, right? Like, there's nothing that's going to come by. Everyone's going to be like, oh, let's all play reasonably for a little while. No. It's always going to be, I got to get mine before the market crashes. So I had I've been telling this analogy about like a car accident. So it feels like, like the economy goes into a car accident. And so then you spend, after everybody gets out of the car, you start assessing damage, and then you start exchanging insurance information so you can pay me for the damage, right? Or whatever. And so it feels like we're going through an event. We're watching a car crash, and it hasn't yet happened, right? And yet we're writing checks already. You know what I mean? And so I'm starting to like I'm watching this interesting phenomenon about consumer sentiment versus what's happening in the market. And so I think back to 2008, like, the damage wasn't until 2010. But before we started to really, the bailouts are still coming. Before we started to really figure out what's going on, the bottom was 2010, 11. But it started in 2007, 8, right? So it took a long time. The stock market may have crashed, but the liquidity takes a long time to get from the stock market to real estate. And so I wonder, like, you're saying the opportunity, how far away is that versus like where we're at now? Like, everybody's complaining about, I was saying complaining, but the investor sentiment is like, people are still having a laugh. Nobody's had any pain yet. And so I wonder, those cap rates are going to decompress. How long is it going to take?
I think that is proportional to how long the crisis here is, right? If we go back to work in 2 weeks from now, this is a blip on the radar. If we're here a month, 2, 3 months out, and people aren't still back to work, we're not going to see any sort of, the stock market crash 30% has been, I don't want to say bad, but not, obviously it's not good.
So
but if we're stuck in the houses in July, right, not working, we're not going to see the consequences of this till a year, 18 months down the line. It's going to take time for consumer confidence to take a hit, for, quarterly earnings to get worse and worse and worse, quarter after quarter after quarter. We're just in the beginning of this. Now, again, if we go back to work in 2 weeks, it was a big fun time. Nothing big happened. We'll probably get 90% of those jobs back almost immediately. But if we're here 6-8 weeks from now, we're in for a lot of pain.
And I think that most people think we will be back in 2 weeks, because that was sort of the first round of mandates that came down. It was like, all right, stay home for 2 weeks. It's a 2-week incubation period or whatever. After that 2 weeks, you're good. But I think that we're probably in this at least for 4, 6, 8 more weeks, if not longer than that. And I think we are heading there, because once people, I don't see that people are distancing themselves enough. I don't know about where you guys are, but we still see a lot, people out there, people getting busted in Jersey for having Corona parties right now, which is a thing, and is like totally making the governor crazy. But it's a Corona party, like 47 people in one bedroom apartment, I guess. Not that kind of Corona party, Alex. So I think people are thinking, yeah, this is a blip and it's no big deal. And I think it's actually going to be a lot worse than what they're thinking.
Yeah, when I talked to Alex last week, we said, jokingly, now I'm kind of like putting it more into a fixed thought, we should call it like the toilet paper meme index, right? The more toilet paper memes that there are out there on Facebook, the higher consumer confidence still is.
Absolutely.
Once those memes start dropping off, we're going to start seeing that the pain is being felt. And it's not till then that we need to start worrying. And like literally, there's no way for us to predict how long this bullshit's going to go on.
Right.
April 29th.
Oh, well, there.
The 30th, we're good, huh?
April 29th. I'm telling you.
So I just need a short position till then I can go long.
I have a little bit different approach than you guys because I'm not going by what people should do or what the news is going to do or what the virus is going to do. I think I'm betting on what human nature is going to do. And I think you don't understand a blip about humanity if you think people are going to box up for 30 days and then, you tell them it's another 2 weeks and they're just going to box in. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm not interested in doing it myself. I'm staying home as much as I'm staying home more than is healthy for my personality. It's really starting to eat at me. And it's only been like you said, like barely 2 weeks. And so I think by May 1, people are going to be cooped up. They're going to be boxed up. And God forbid the government doesn't produce clear messaging on this. Because if there's the more that they bounce around, the more people will be like, you guys don't know what the fuck you're doing. And the other thing that matters is the virus metrics. So what I'm waiting for is people like Boris Johnson and some of the other senators to come out and say, I'm healthy now. And then I think people will be like, okay, well, because right now you're hearing a lot, like people are dying. It's like, yeah, but people are getting better too. A lot of them. Right. And so I think once you start to see those numbers come out, like, I don't want to get it. I don't want to give it to anybody. I don't want to spread it. But once I start to see some reassurance that's like, well, the odds are you'll be okay. Then I think then if people will be like, well, I'm cooped up in my house. I can't pay my bills. And if I get this thing, I'll probably be okay. I'm going to work. That's what I think is going to happen.
I think that will happen. And then I think phase 2 happens.
I think that's probably true too, but I think.
And we have a relapse here and it gets potentially worse than the first go round.
Yeah, maybe. Now who's the optimist?
I'm just saying, I'm not optimistic about this. I'm staying home, man. I'm staying in this house. I'm
staying home too, and I'm miserable about it.
But I see your post, and I hear what you're saying, and I feel you, and I get it. And I think, and your sentiment is one that's felt by a lot of people. And back to Russell's point about the memes, it's like I see a lot of memes and posts on Facebook and Instagram and everything, and it's like, they're talking about, well, how many people die from a car crash every day, or they're comparing it to all these other things. And they're like, it's not a big deal. They're really dismissive of it. And so I think as soon as they start to see that people like Tom Hanks coming out of it and to your point, senators, Boris Johnson, whoever, they're thinking it's not that big a deal. And I think we're going to hit with the second wave.
Here's where we could actually be screwed is if any of these famous people actually die.
If I take all this back, if somebody famous croaks, oh God, we lose. Because I was so worried. Was it Ted Cruz that got it? Ted Cruz got it.
Oh man,
Tom Cruise.
I wish he was.
Tom Hanks.
No. Who's the senator?
Rand Paul, right?
Rand Paul. Yeah. So I saw that. I was like, fuck it. That guy dies. Now we got we got everything I say just gets nulled out. That's my caveat. Like,
if anyone famous dies, the hysteria behind it will be 10 times worse than it is now.
Unless it's somebody that nobody cares about.
Or someone everyone hates, yeah.
Yeah.
True.
If OJ, poor guy, like I love OJ, but I mean, people are like,
Yeah.
They'll just be like, if it was OJ, they'd be like karma.
Right.
What's his name? The Hollywood guy got it. He just went to jail. The rapist or whatever. The Hollywood dude, the guy, the Tarantino's buddy.
I'm not really plugged into Me Too that much.
Yeah, he was Harvey Weinstein. They said
Harvey Weinstein.
Okay.
Yeah. But if Tom Hanks died, right? Tom Hanks got it. If he died,
if he died, everybody would go in their house and stay there for 45 days, just in mourning.
Tom Hanks dying could lead to a Great Depression.
That's true. It's true.
It's not worth it. Speaking of memes, I made this one today. Can you see this?
Oh boy. No, it's black. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I did see that. Yeah. Look at you.
I
liked your friend's meme with the
you money when you buy. Make money when you buy. The market will only go up. Yeah.
That's a good one.
So I've been memeing. Look, my points with the whole thing is people, they just lose objectivity. Not only do they want you to stay inside, they also want you to be scared. And I'll tell you what, I'm staying inside. It's not good for me. I hate it, but I'm doing the right thing. But you're not going to shut my mouth And so my complaint with people is they're like, Alex, you better just shut up and play along and be happy about it. And the more that I feel that social pressure to just conform, the more that pressure comes onto me, the more it says to me, you don't want me to do what's right. You really want thought control. That's how I feel about it. You want me to be scared like you. You want me to just do what I'm told, and you want to feel empowered by it. And so the more that maybe I'm embellishing. This is my rebellious nature. The more that people pressure on me, I'm like, I'm gonna start going outside on purpose. Fuck you guys. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
I mean, that's right in line with your personality, and I would expect nothing less. I have a different take on it. I don't really who benefits from me. I don't think anyone's sitting at their place like, oh, haha, I got Justin to stay in his house today. Like, I don't, I'm more about, listen, if it helps, great. And maybe we're all overblowing this whole thing, and that's okay too. Listen.
I'm staying inside. I'm doing the right thing.
You got to do the right thing.
But I'm fussing about it, and you're not going to take that away.
We are hearing that loud and clear. We are all hearing you fussing about it.
Okay, so that brings me to a perfect segue.
Perfect.
The pastor in Florida.
Oh, Jesus.
He held it. Justin, I don't know if you not want to talk about this stuff. The pastor in Florida has 1,200 people gathered at church, and he's like, yeah, I don't give a shit. Come on, let's go. And so they arrested him, and I was like, I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but that's the first rule. The most important rule is my freedom to assembly. And I'm not a big defender of churches generally. But I thought that was interesting, and people would get all like, yeah, why he's so wrong, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, okay. You guys are missing the first rule. That's the first rule. Well, and then my favorite part was he goes off and he does it again. He did it
Russell is squirming in his seat over
here.
here.
Russell, sorry, go ahead.
The freedom to assembly is actually very narrowly defined in the Constitution. The freedom of assembly is to air your grievances against the government, which is separate from your ability to practice your religion. So he actually doesn't have the freedom to assemble.
Let's read it. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion, no prohibiting of free speech thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government of a redress of grievances.
So the redress of grievances is part of the same sentence as the freedom to assemble.
Well, I think it's up for interpretation because that's not how I read it. Look, I'm not a constitutional lawyer, and I'm 100%. I'm sure
none of us are.
I'm sure there's precedent. I'm sure there's precedent on this. And so here's my argument. Look, I'm not sitting there trying to argue technicalities because I don't care about technicalities. What I care about is, you should read the Federalist Papers because the guys who wrote the Constitution wanted you to know why they wrote it the way they wrote it. And so it tells you, it's like, hey, look, they wrote this. If you think about it, they were in the face of a terrible tyrannous monarchy. And the whole Constitution is basically a giant FU to King George and all the stuff all the oppression they were doing. And so the whole thing is like, hey, make sure they don't take any of your rights ever. And they're going to try. And so I look at this and I'm like, but we'll just he doesn't get a First Amendment because, the greater, safety or whatever. And I'm like, well, okay, but that's what they said about the TSA. And now I have to get my balls checked every time I go on an airplane. And we got nothing for that.
Well, you get to be felt up every time you get on an airplane. So.
Well, I do that every time I go to your house in New Jersey.
Hello.
Hey.
So this guy that got arrested, this pastor, he got arrested and he got released. Is that what happened? And then he got arrested again, or he did it again?
He did it again. Yeah.
Okay.
To me, it's just, I was just making a point. Like, look, I think it's good that some people are pushing back against the system a little bit, right? We shouldn't all jump to like, ooh, there's a virus of unknown damage and it's new. Let's all, one, trust the government, and two, run for cover. Like, those are just two things that I don't think they're just.
So how do you feel about the guys that were down at spring break on the beach in Florida?
They're idiots.
Okay.
So they're idiots, but the pastor's on the right?
The pastor's not right because of what he did. I like that he's defending look, you can be stupid in this country. That's all right. If we start taking that away, well, then I want to know who decides. Because if you let me, I'll tell you who's stupid and we'll cut them right out.
There you go.
But see my point. It's like, but that's the point of freedom. It's like it comes with the lack of safety in some regards. Your freedom is going to bump into my freedom at some point. That's the point of it. Otherwise, if it's like otherwise you get a dictatorship, right? Everybody follows all the rules. Nobody gets out of line.
But when one person's freedom bumps into my freedom, and that freedom, I might die.
Yeah, that's the oldest argument. Well, you might. Well, but every time I get in the car, every time I wave my gun around, every time I go on
I think they found something like in California, something like 40% of those that are infected have been traced back to church services.
Yeah, well, that's where all the people get together. Nobody gets to everybody else is on the internet.
And they all drink out of the same cup.
Yeah. Look, I just wanted to bring it up because it irks me. I just wanted to know what you guys thought. That's all.
I think those guys can do without going to church for a few weeks.
Maybe.
So Alex's point though is, should he have been arrested for holding service? Right.
Well, look, he might have gotten arrested, but he wasn't found guilty. They released him on bond in a few hours. I mean,
right.
My guess is the case is going to go away. If they found him guilty, then I bet you have a Supreme Court case on your hands.
Right. So I think then, he's arrested for, creating I don't know, whatever they called it, but it's basically creating a space where people can hurt other people, right? So they're all getting together. They're going to go get infected, and they're going to bring all that home.
I get it.
I don't know. I don't have the answer here, but I don't think it's right. Right? Are we talking right versus wrong or legal versus illegal?
It's like this. It's like the slippery slope argument. That's what it is. It's like you arrest that guy. Okay. What if this thing is on? You can start arresting people in 6 weeks for going outside? What about 8 weeks? Right? When are we going to let them? What if they don't give it? Like, what if they don't ever let us back out? I'm just saying, you give it all up and then it's hard to get that freedom back, dude. I'm just telling you.
I mean, part of freedom is being a responsible adult and choosing not to be an asshole.
That's not in the Constitution.
If we all choose to be assholes, then society breaks down.
I'm just here to play devil's advocate. I'm not saying the guy. Look, my hope is that guy's case gets dropped and that this thing all goes away and it's like not that big a deal.
I think it's going to be funny in a year or two when we look back on this and you're defending the rights of some pastor who's probably a charlatan, stealing money from these people, and you're like, that guy, I was defending him.
Right.
I was defending the First Amendment. And that is not, I'm not the one to stand up for, I'm not usually the one to stand up for churches. So I like churches, but I'm not usually the one to stick up for, attendance of churches. Last thing I had on my list, at least, tightening lending requirements and stimulus.
We just made a hard left turn here. All right.
I know. I didn't go in order. I'm sorry. Tightening lending requirements. We're already starting to see it. I put on Facebook about 2 weeks ago. I said, hey, if you got a HELOC, go grab that.
Mm-hmm.
Take it all out and stick it in cash because they're going to they're going to close down equity lines, credit cards. A whole bunch of my credit cards, I get emails. Balances have been reduced. Have you guys seen any of that?
I haven't seen any of my balances reduced, thankfully, but I have 3 properties under contract right now, none of which I can get a loan on. So all of them we've extended due diligence because all the lenders that we've had been speaking with have said, not no, but not right now. And so wait at least 30, 45 days, maybe 60 days. So we put a 60-day extension on everything.
Yeah, I haven't had anything personally, but definitely every lender I know has upped the credit score requirements for their underwriting, which is kind of surprising because some of them are Fannie Mae direct lenders.
FHA raised the minimums.
Yeah.
I think Fannie did too, from 620 to 660 or 680. I mean, it was pretty.
Did Fannie do it, or did people do it as overlays?
I don't know. I'd have to look. I mean, I can look right now, but
okay.
It
doesn't affect me or my client base that much. I typically don't have anyone with a credit score that low. None of my credit lines have been called yet.
Yeah, good.
But I'm certainly prepared for that.
Yeah, I was just curious. It'll be interesting to see how things happen. I think rates are going to come up actually, because liquidity is going to tighten and risk is going to go up. So I think rates are going to go up.
Well, I think in that respect, actually, it kind of goes back to something we touched on earlier. I think we're going to start to see the rate difference between poor credit and good credit sort of expand.
Oh, that's a good. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. So largely, like the difference between someone with 680 credit and someone in the upper 700s has not been significant, if it exists at all. I think we'll see a widening in that gap. Because I actually think we'll see rates going lower, but an expansion in the delta between poor and good credit.
Oh, you think rates will come up for worse credit, and
Yeah.
rates will stay low for good credit?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I hadn't really thought about that, but that does make sense.
Because up recently, it was just you hit a certain point and you were good, right?
Yeah.
You were above a 6 whatever, and
I mean, even if you were like 650,
yeah,
like just that delta between that middle tier credit and the great credit was like an eighth of a point, maybe, like even that.
Yeah. So I can get 4.5, and you can get
4.25. Yeah, 4 and 3. 3/8. Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's going to be curious to see how it happens. And then the other thing I'm curious of is a lot of what was driving the market was hard money, and some of the hard money at the end, last 2 weeks. I mean, Lending Home was going to give me 9%. I'd never done business with Lending Home before on a 90-10 flip. And I'm just like, Lending Home, like, how much money do you guys have that you're throwing it away so cheaply to just any old Yahoo? I mean, I have a good track record, but not for flips. They want you to have like, they said they'll count my rehabs, which they should.
Yeah, but how much were you borrowing?
Yeah, not much.
Yeah, so
$100,000.
It's different borrowing $100,000 versus $1 million, right?
Well, yeah, but still, my point is, you couldn't do that 5 years ago, right? That's certainly a product of the heat of the market. And so now that comes down, I wonder if you get a little bit of a credit crunch and then you get a liquidity crunch, interest rate goes up. I mean, really, you're going to knock 20-30% off of just people who can play, like the amount that people can play the game.
Yeah, so it will be interesting actually to see what happens to the hard money lenders when they have all these loans out. Especially if this drags on and people can't sell those houses in the back end for quite some time, what's going to happen to them as borrowers decide to default? Because most of the hard money lenders, right, they're borrowing from a line of credit on the bank at say 5% and lending out at 8%, or 9% or whatever it is. And what happens if those small regional banks start calling those lines of credit due while they've got these loans out there? So this should actually be pretty interesting to see how that's dealt with.
Yeah, time really makes a big difference here, because like right now, the three of us basically said, at least for loans and whatnot and some other things, I know Justin's working on his operations side, but for purchases, everybody's kind of stalled.
Yeah.
Well, if house sales slow and then, rents don't come in, well, 1 month, some people get knocked out, but not really. 1 month, I mean, you can't even get anything repoed for after a month. I mean, it just can't do that much damage. Now you get to 90 days, you don't pay a commercial loan for 9 days, you're done. They're going to come get that. I mean, depending on your relationship with them, but most people don't have any relationship with their commercial lender. Very little. So it'll be interesting if this thing drags out.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking to all of our lenders right now to see, what they're offering. Thankfully, we don't feel like we need any help on any of our multifamily loans right now. We have reserves and we planned appropriately. We didn't overpay when we bought. But that doesn't mean we didn't make phone calls and talk to everyone and just say, hey, we don't have an issue now, but we might. Let's talk. Let's stay in contact with each other and keep that
You
communication.
almost have to wonder though, like, and those conversations are obviously for a syndicator important to have, because then you have to relay those to your investors.
Yeah.
But you almost have to wonder, what is the value of that conversation anyways? Because literally day by day, what the banks are doing is changing. So
That's true.
What you hear on Tuesday is completely different than what may be their policy on Wednesday.
That's true. I mean, I talked to my lender on one of our deals on Friday last week, and he's the conversation ended in, I don't really know. Thanks for calling. Let's talk on Wednesday and see if anything's changed.
But at least then you can go to your investors and say, hey, we've been talking to the banks, keeping the lines of communication open. Even though that conversation is worthless.
It's true, except that, you're showing that you're engaged, and if
that's your job.
That is my job. Yeah. Well, not only showing my investors that we're engaged, but showing the bank that we're engaged and that we want to do the right thing with the money as well. And so, we'll see. I don't know if that someone that doesn't call the bank versus someone does call the bank, if there's any positive or negative, but I always err on the side of over communicate and try to talk it out and, see
I'm
what
curious.
happens.
So you said you're in Kentucky, the Kentucky and Fayetteville markets.
Yeah.
Has your rent collection, and granted we're only at the third, been different in those two markets, or does it seem somewhat similar?
We pretty similar. We collected a little more in Fayetteville than we did in, like, probably 5% more in Fayetteville than we did in Kentucky. But even in Kentucky, we have two properties that are a mile from each other, and one collected 30% more than the other property did in terms of the total rent collection. And so it really just depends on the makeup of the property. We did offer incentives actually in Kentucky. We offered a pretty nice rent discount if they pay on time. Now, on time means the 5th. So they still
could be on time.
Yeah. Today they could be on time. Tomorrow they could pay on time. And so they've still got some time to do that. So we'll see where it shakes out. We're trying it. Honestly, we're trying different things in different markets to see what works.
I wish
we don't know what's going to work.
I wish I had done that.
What's that? The discount?
Yeah. I wish I had done that.
You still can.
Yeah, I think I may say, hey, look.
Make it by the 15th. I
think I may make it by the 10th or something. Send it on a Monday and say, hey, look, anybody who paid, what'd you do? How much did you do?
We did 15%. It's pretty heavy.
Yeah, I was thinking 10.
That's probably where we would have liked to be. Our PM just really pushed for it and wanted to do that across our portfolio, and so we trust them, and so we said let's go for it and see how it works out. But probably we would have been more comfortable at 10.
So Alex, I think in your situation where you have probably almost as many units as I have, like it's an easier direct landlord to tenant call, right?
You sound like such a prick when you say it that way.
No,
you have almost as many units as me.
We're in the same bucket. Like where I just reached out to my tenants a week ahead of time and said, I just want to know so I can get ready if it's the case, or you're going to have trouble paying the rent. Like, I don't think you need to offer them a rent discount up front. I think you need
our tenant quality is different.
I agree with that, but
I have tenants that don't have an email
whether
address.
They're going to have a problem first, so that you don't offer someone a discount if they are not looking for one.
I have tenants that are hard to pay even when there isn't a pandemic. So,
to Russell's point, though, I will say we did have a handful of tenants come in with the full rent payment. And so now I'm like, do I have to issue a credit for next month? Like, you've paid me too much money. I'm not going to give it back to you right now, but at some point I'm going to have to give you a credit, I think. So maybe we swung too hard on that one and didn't need to do a full 15. But if you're seeing early indications here by the 5th that you haven't gotten as much as you would normally get, do you have data from your PM on what you collected by the 5th of last month? And can you compare?
I haven't, but that's the number to look at. Yeah. Is it better or worse than last month?
And how much?
I wonder if my early collection so I was thinking my early collection was a factor of people being at home and bored and nothing to do once the first came around. They just paid their bills. But maybe it's because I reached out to them a week ahead of time and had them thinking about rent earlier than they normally would. maybe that's why my rent collection is, because normally I don't get the last rent until about the 10th. So having it a week ahead of time was unusual.
Yeah.
But your tenants are A properties?
Yeah, so they're more like a B-class type property in A neighborhoods. So
Okay.
they're all in, outside of my ones in Charlotte, which are new construction, they're in the counties that are in the top 10 richest counties in America.
Right.
So, my typical tenant has a household income of 150,000, say. I've got one that's a bartender who expressed actually that he was going to have an issue paying, and then he paid. And he pays around the 10th.
Right. So your tenants could be homeowners if they chose.
Most of my tenants typically move on from being my tenant to being a homeowner on their next place to live in.
Alex's tenants and most of my tenants are not in that situation. Yeah. They'll be tenants for life, most of them.
Yeah.
And so I wonder, that plays into it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's sort of been one of my investment philosophies, in part because I got burned in the C and D class early to focus on the high quality stuff. But all my tenants are, other than the bartender, they're working. They're just working from home.
Yeah, good. Well, yeah, I mean, I think I have 30% rents in. It's only the 5th, or it's only the 3rd. I think probably by Tuesday I'll have a little better idea. I try not to worry about it too much because, like the rest said earlier, it's like they pay or they don't pay. It doesn't really affect my life that much. I mean, if I lost 2 months, April, I basically committed in my mind. I'm like, I'm going to have no rent April and May. And then I just made peace with it. And then look, my life didn't change in any way. There's nothing that was going to change from that. So while we're staying on top of it and we're trying to, like Justin said, like we started communications really early. I think we sent something out like 2 weeks ago. And like, hey, look, just so you know, when they started saying, the news started saying something about rent, they stopped eviction court. And so we basically reached out and said, hey, look, we didn't say that. We were like, hey, look, just so you know, there's this thing going on. Everybody stay fucking healthy. Everybody stay safe. If you need us, we'll be here. We're going to do limited staff. Just like, we said the same thing. And like, but look, the law, we're expecting everybody to pay rent. If you can't, let us know. We'll work with you, whatever. And then, so we didn't hear anything. And then now they're all paying. So I'm ahead of where I thought I'd be. I thought I'd have nobody.
Do you know what your break even is on what percentage of your tenants need to pay for you to just cover your mortgages?
On the multifamily, it's high because we bought it late in the cycle and we didn't know what the heck we were doing. So on the multifamily, I think I need something like 85%.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty high.
Yeah,
it's getting better.
I think we're probably around 60 to 70%.
Okay.
But that's not just a mortgage. That's, that covers our expenses.
Yeah.
The margins are not huge, even on the larger properties. Percentage-wise, they're not huge, but you have more units, so it makes up for it. But yeah, we should be able to make our mortgage payments, and we have something that we haven't discussed is we have an interest reserve built in to a lot of our loans that we don't ever use unless we have to, but it's basically like prepaid interest that came with when we bought when we got the loan. And so if we had to, we could, I think half of our mortgage payment is already covered and prepaid. And so that's just another tool in the belt that we can use if we were not getting the collections that we needed.
Yeah, I need about 70 to 75% to break even. So
my single families are much less. My single families are much less. I think I'm probably closer to 50%, and I live in one of them. But my single families, those are I got pretty damn good deals on all of those. The multifamily we bought other people. We bought it late in the cycle. Wasn't a bad deal. I like that deal, but it wasn't something. And we've only had it for 6 months. And we're still paying like first year escrow costs. So something like Justin said, one thing that jammed me up, and Justin and I have talked about this, like I got on that loan, I have a $500 a month reserve for repairs, and I have a $500 a month escrow for insurance. Basically, I'm paying insurance 2 times. I'm paying it to the insurance company and I'm paying it to escrow.
Yeah.
And so those are things and so I got caught off guard. So out of $14,000 of income, I get basically 10% of that a month goes to those ancillary costs. So that's part of that 85% that I say I have to hit is probably it'd probably be closer to like 75% if I didn't have those two costs. But those two costs are sitting in the bank. Now, the insurance one I can't take, but the reserves for the repairs, which I pay out of pocket anyways, and the property's been upkept. Actually, we did a ton of deferred maintenance. So all that said, I probably have 75% of another payment sitting at the bank already, just like Justin, just like you have. And we'll be able to make probably two.
Yeah, and once you age to 12 months, right, that's $1,000 a month that comes off that payment.
Dude, once I hit 12 months, that property is going to be kicking off cash. I love that property.
So my 40 unit, the way that it was set up was they take $1,000 a month in repair reserves every month, and we're 2 years in. And but now I've got $22,000 sitting in that account right now. And I said, hey guys, guess what? I'm going to access that repair reserve, and all those HVACs that I replaced out of cash flow, I'm going to start submitting expenses and get some of that cash back in, so I can hold that rather than the bank holding that.
Nice.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Have reserves. That's
what about the office building, Alex, you just bought? What's the details on that?
So Roger and I are there's basically four of us that work out of that office on a regular basis. I don't go there that much, but him and Betty and Lisa, Sarah rather, and there's probably three of them that work there all the time, and like a roving six of us.
Yeah.
And it's 110 square foot. And so we need something bigger. And so we were going to go off and buy something anyways. Or actually, he was going to go rent something. I'm like, don't fucking rent something. Let's buy something. We're real estate investors. What the heck is wrong with you? And so we were just going to go get something for like $1,200 a month. And then we started looking, and we found that building in downtown. And it didn't pan out. I couldn't get it to work. I kind of screwed up a little bit. And the seller was flaky, super flaky. So anyways, we were a little disappointed.
Is that the one next to that restaurant we went to?
No, but it's down the street.
Okay.
That building we liked, but Hay Street, it's like $400,000 for 2,000 square feet, and it needs a total rehab. And that 2,000 square feet, it's just weird. It wasn't a good fit for us.
All right.
Sounds like my single families.
What's that?
I said it sounds like one of my single family properties.
This is in downtown Fayetteville. Yeah, like downtown Hay Street. Like So anyway, so we found this place. It's 2,800 square foot. We bought it for $280. It's a tattoo parlor, but it's actually nice. So we're gonna take all the tattoo stuff out and decorate our own, whatever. It's got two tenants in the back already signed for 2-year leases. They're $700 a month. That's basically gonna cover me. That's $1,400. We're gonna finance $220. My nut's gonna be $1,700.
Cool.
So
nice.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I'm not in that deal. Actually, I'm basically doing it with Roderick, but I'm not gonna put my name on it because, well, he wants his own little office building, and it doesn't make money. It's gonna be an expense. So it's not, my business doesn't run. If I put money in it, there's no return on investment for me. So I said, you just do it. But look, he's my partner. I love the guy. I'm going to go there every day and go to work and try to I think I'm going to try to build a brokerage out of there. I started real estate school this week, actually.
Sweet.
Yeah. So that's what I'm doing during quarantine. So that office building, they wanted $300 for it. And we were like, yeah, probably not. We'll give you $280. And they're like, oh, $280. How dare you? We have somebody better. COVID-19.
How long do you have to be licensed in North Carolina before you can be a broker?
I think it's 2 years or 10 deals, something like that.
Oh, 10 deals. They do by deals? That's
don't quote me. That's just what I don't.
I just wrote it down. So now that's it. So that's the law.
I think it's
like, I think you would be terrible at sales, but I actually think you would be really good at being a broker.
I'm good at sales, but I hate it. And I agree with you. I'd be a good broker. Because I can lead people, but I don't want to deal with, I don't handhold.
Yeah, and that's sort of the difference. So what I do is in sales is I'm hand-holding people just constantly. And
Which
being
is very surprising to me
because
you're
being a leader. It's very different.
Which is surprising to me because you're intolerable.
Yeah, well, you know.
Those uppity DC people I guess they is that City Hostel or what? Like, where I'm from in Rhode Island, like everybody's got a little edge on them. Justin too.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. So one of the reasons I moved to DC is because I in part felt like people were nicer here than Boston, where I was from. So people are much nicer here. They value education here. So if you can speak intelligently about something, then they value what you have to say. in Boston or Rhode Island, it's virtually the same thing. You just have to be an asshole, and then they respect you.
Yeah. Who's the bigger jerk? That's who wins. I got you. Oh, that's interesting.
We see that in Jersey too.
Yeah.
We see it.
Yeah. Look, you brag. You don't be left behind. Like, hey, we're jerks too.
Don't forget about me.
Yeah.
I said we see that. Not all of us.
No, you're the nice.
Some of us are nice people.
I was talking to,
well, actually, this is kind of funny because my wife's been busting my balls lately because she's been home a lot. So she sees like stuff I have up on the computer screen. She's like, "You are so mean to people on the internet."
You have been on a tear lately.
I've been trying to explain to her that all the being mean to people on the internet is somehow how we derive the comfortable living that we make.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you like that air conditioning while you're yelling at me? Well, let me just handle my business. Sorry, Liz. I love you. Okay. Well, anybody, you got anything else?
No, I'm sure we'll all be dead in like another couple weeks. But...
There you go. The optimist speaks again.
Yeah. So I'm going to do this every week, I think. Next week, I got my buddy Jay Mirando. You met Jay, Russell.
I met Jay,
Yeah, hot shot in Las Vegas. He was rated 40 under 40 in 2018. And then Jay Scott agreed to come on.
Wow.
Yeah. And he goes, just so you know, you're the only one that I would do this for on a Friday night. And I said, why? He goes, well, because, Carol wants some, Carol time. I said, Carol loves me. He goes, that's why you're going to get it. And that's why I said I'd come. So, yeah. I don't know what I'm going to do with this thing, man. I need a name for it. Think of a name for this thing for me.
What was your thought? Beer, drinking?
Better drinking buddies.
I think that's cool. I don't mind it.
Yeah, I might call it that then. At least
Three
temporarily.
blind mice.
3 blind mice. I'm only going to do it. I like this. And I like this format where I know that I have 2 people that I can have a conversation with, but the guests don't always have to know each other, because I know, like, generally people who like me are going to get along. Generally. Like,
fair point.
Like people who are like, oh, I don't like Alex. You know who they get along with? Other people that don't like Alex.
Right. So you should have a panel of all people who do not like you. Let's try that.
Oh, God. I could do that. I could get the people together.
Can you moderate that panel?
Who'd be on there? My friend Casey would definitely be on there. So the gig here is I'm going to have like the same 6 to 10 revolving guests.
We have to come back?
You don't have to. Go fuck yourself.
Right.
No, you don't have to figure out the technical difficulties.
Well, I don't have to stream it. I'm just going to record it, and then I'm going to, what I'm going to do? As soon as I'm done with this, I'm going to print out a little thing on, I'll do it on Photoshop, and I'll just build an overlay. On an Adobe Premiere. I'll put it into Adobe Premiere. I'll put an overlay. I'll export it. I'll upload it tonight on YouTube. It'll be done.
The nice thing about live, though, is you can interact with the folks that are commenting.
Yeah, but they couldn't hear us, so I got to figure it out.
Figure your tech out, man.
Yeah.
It's 2020.
Pester, so Kevin knows all this shit. Pester him.
Okay, yeah, I will.
Yeah.
There you go. No, this was fun. Thanks for the
awesome,
drink.
Man.
Thanks for the drink, man. It was good.
Yeah, it's good to see you guys. I figured this is kind of what everybody's doing, but I wanted to do it 2 years ago, and I fucked it up. And then as soon as shit hit, as soon as people started going home, and I'm like, we got to do it now.
Yeah.
Because the demand is just obscene. And
people are starved for content right now.
Yep. I can't believe we put that thing on live, just screwing around, didn't say anything, like 11 people, just like that.
Yeah.
I was like,
Immediately.
Yeah. I'm gonna. In fact, it's 10 o'clock. I'm gonna go edit this. I'm not even gonna edit. I'm gonna export this, put the names on, put them little labels on it, and I'm gonna upload it tonight.
Cool.
Sweet.
All right.
Thanks for having us.
I'll
see you later.
Be well.